the reason we are here is because if you follow me on my YouTube channel, you follow both of us as well on there. Every single week since last season, we've been recapping and reviewing Harley Quinn on the DC universe, right? And as you can tell, we have a hell of a lot of fun with it. There's no doubt about that. But one review in particular caught the eyes of some great people, namely the showrunners of Harley Quinn, which was, I'll be honest, I was like, say what, Jesus?
All I know is that I got a phone call from you, I want to say at like 2:30 in the afternoon. When I told you, I was like, bro.
When I told you that you would always freeze up, see, I knew it was gonna happen.
It's fine. If it freezes, just keep rolling. It's essentially whenever I start talking loud, for some reason it just.
So that should let you know to not talk loud. Get your shit together.
The point was, I was out somewhere and I was like, "Don't disturb me right now." And he's called me like 2-3 times in a row, like, "Bruh." And then I finally called him back and said, "What happened?" He goes, "They like us, son. They like us."
So we found out that the showrunners actually watched the review and it had them cracking up laughing. And that, all we want to do is talk about something we love and what we do here on Blerds in the Hood and just make sure we have people have a great time with it. So we got the chance to have one of the showrunners here with us now, which we're going to use this one to leverage getting the other ones. And then we're going to leverage that to hopefully get the cast. I'm just letting you know in advance how it's going to go. Why lie, right? You know what I'm saying? So
look, we already talked about this and we'll tell him when he gets in the room. Go ahead. Bring him in. We'll just levy this.
Levy it all out. So we're honored to have one of the showrunners from Harley Quinn on the DC Universe app, Mr. Justin Halpern. Justin, what's happening?
What's happening, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Do you understand how giddy we've been?
No, man, we watch, because like sometimes I'll scroll through and see kind of what people are saying, and then I don't know how I found the review, but maybe somebody sent it to me. I can't remember, but I started watching. Normally, I watch like probably like 30 seconds or maybe a minute of a review, just to see what people are thinking. But I was just dying. You guys were so funny. I was like dying laughing at the review. So I just watched the whole like 11 minutes. And then
that was supposed to be 20. That was supposed to be a 20-minute review.
I know you were doing the Micro Machines guy. You were just like pumping through it. And then I sent it to the other show, my partners on the show. And I was like, you got to watch this fucking thing. And they watched it and they were dying laughing, and we sent it around to some of the other writers on the show and everybody was laughing. And then when you were like, you want to come on this? I've never gone on one of these before, like anybody's review show before. And I was like, yes, I would love to go on this. Because you guys are funny. Like you're actually really funny, really funny. So it's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I mean, and that's the whole thing. You guys have created an absolutely hysterical show. Like it's and in the fact,
there goes the dog.
Agrees. The dog completely agrees. You made a great show. Woo, yes you did. But it's amazing because you're like, I would make the argument that Harley's kind of been on a hot streak, the character as a whole, for the last like 4 or 5 years. I mean, you had Suicide Squad, while not the best movie, her like Margot Robbie and her
being a standout
breakout, which obviously led to a follow-up in Birds of Prey. You had Batman and Harley Quinn happen, the animated movie a little while ago. And even just recently in Justice League Dark, she like had her own kind of standout stuff going on. So is that what kind of spurred the show on, or is this a character that you've always loved and you're just like, I just want to make a show about it?
It's funny. We had this. So this shows you how long animation takes. We pitched this show in 2016. Yeah.
Damn.
And we had just been working on another show, and Warner, but we're under contract to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers called us up one day and was basically like, look, we know we want to do an animated R-rated DC show, but we don't know what, when we think something we'd love to do it with Harley, and can you come in and pitch a take? And we were like, fuck yes, we will definitely do that. Because like we're pretty low on the totem pole of Warner Brothers deals. Like they got J.J. Abrams and they got like Nolan and all. So like by the time a call gets to us, it's usually not like the choicest shit.
Right. It's been filtered on down.
Yeah, it's like, everybody else said no. but for we're some of the younger guys on deals there, so they wanted this show to feel young, and so we were basically like, look, our take is like, we want to do a breakup show. Like, we don't want we want a show to be about, like, when you're dating a piece of shit, it's pretty hard to, like, figure out what you're going to do once you stop dating that piece of shit. And that was our take for it. It was like, what if we do, like, Mary Tyler Moore, but she's a killer, you know? And that was our pitch. And so, you know, we loved my writing partner, Patrick, who you should definitely have on.
You already heard this earlier. Listen, so since we got you on, we want you to be like, hey, these guys are actually really funny in real life. And so you should come on.
Oh yeah, he would love to. He's great. He is like a comic book like freak. Like he has, you know, like he's steeped in that shit since he was a little kid. So he was just like so geeked up to do it. And, you know, I wasn't like I loved BTAS and I loved the X-Men cartoon, and The Simpsons is like fucking my Bible basically. So I was like, look, I would love to do an R-rated animated show. Most of the stuff that we had done had been just network TV where, like, you can't say certain things, you can't do certain things. So the chance to do something R-rated, I was like, yes, let me do this. And so from there, we just, like, you know, we came up with a pitch, and then we basically, like, called all of our friends who are comedians and actors that we've worked with before, and we're like, can you come do voices on this? Like Chris Maloney and Ron Funches. And
I was just about to ask about Ron, because Ron worked on Powerless just as much as you did. So I figured that was the connection with the two of you guys.
Yeah, and Alan Tudyk, who was on
Powerless. And Alan Tudyk, who he played, what was it, Van Wayne or something like that?
Van Wayne, yeah. And so I remember too, because for everybody else, we had really like broken out these characters. And so by the time I went to the actors, I was like, look, here's the character. This is exactly what it is. Here's the backstory. Here's this, here's that. Here's our take on it. With Ron, I was like, Ron, you want to play a killer shark? He was like, yes, I do.
And let me ask about that real quick. And like you said, how did you guys go about the takes with these characters? Like Poison Ivy being about the environment, but she like, yo, I just want to be happy. King Shark being a tech nerd who we've said this and we want to know if it's true. King Shark is an allegory for black nerds in real life.
I think that's pretty true. I think that is like, I mean, I have to give a lot of credit to Ron, because that was like kind of Ron's. That's like, you guys should definitely have Ron on. He's fantastic. But Ron, that was what Ron wanted to bring to it. So in a lot of these, we kind of like created the character, and then the actors came in and did their takes on it, and we kind of like moved it towards that. This one, we were kind of like, Ron, just like do what you want to do, and we'll mold it to that. Because Ron's such a specific performer, you know? And that was, Ron wanted to bring the like black nerd take to it. And I think, he does such a good job. He's so funny.
Which and it's funny just because like, I didn't realize, like I knew like of your book, Shit My Dad Says, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit is absolutely hilarious to me. I didn't realize that you had also written on Cougar Town.
Yeah. So I had my career's been kind of weird. So I had Shit My Dad Says was just like, you know, this thing that blew up on the internet that I didn't really even kind of plan for it to do. And then I wrote a book, and the book did really well. And then it got turned into a really bad TV show. But from there, I was like, we weren't the showrunners of that show, but we got to be staffed on it. And I was like, look, the show sucks, but I'm going to like put my head down, and we're going to work as hard as we can work. And so that we can like build a career, you know, like I got to keep working after this piece of shit goes down, you know? So we just kept working, and we kept getting hired on other shows. And then we got hooked up with this guy, Bill Lawrence, who created like Scrubs. He created Cougar Town. And we had this idea for a show that we wanted. I'd written another book, and I wanted to turn it into a show, but we needed like kind of like somebody to executive produce it. And so we came to Bill Lawrence, and Bill was like, look, work a year on Cougar Town. Let me like feel you guys out. And if it works out well, I'll executive produce this next show for you. So that's what we did. We spent a year on Cougar Town, and then we created the show that got on Fox called Surviving Jack with Chris Maloney, which is how Chris Maloney's in as Gordon. You know, and I think, Jay, to go back to your earlier question, like, I think our feeling on the takes of these characters were like, the whole idea of our pitch was like, what are supervillains like in the in-between moments, right? Like when you're watching a Batman movie, like shit's heightened. They're in the middle of a heist. They're fucking bringing down Bane. They're doing all this kind of shit, you know, but like they still got to eat. They still got to like hang out. Like shit can't be at a 10 all the time. Like you got to like, you gotta relax. And so we were like, you know, Poison Ivy's protecting the environment, but when she's not, she's probably just like, everybody needs to leave me the fuck alone. Like, I just want to like chill out, you know? And so we kind of looked at it as like, what are these comedic points of view during the downtime? And that's going to be our take on the show.
Okay. I mean, it's one of the things that I appreciate is that I think our favorite moments from the, in general, but really from season 1 and season 2 are these Legion of Doom or this Injustice League like type situations where they're all make fun of Bane because he's an idiot, or that like
what made that happen? Yeah, what made like I've done a certain thing, but well, I'd like to do the Bane voice. What made you guys decide to make Bane this way?
So we were like, that was the hardest one to crack. We were like, we knew we wanted Bane in the show because we had this character designer named Shane Glines who did a lot of actually like the artwork on the original Batman the Animated Series. And we were like asking him to draw up characters, and he drew the Bane that you see now. He drew him up, and he was like, I don't know, Bane seems like the kind of dude who doesn't work out his legs. Like he just does like he does like chest and back day, but he doesn't do leg day. And I was like, that's perfect. It's exactly a fun. And so we took that, and then we started thinking about it. And we were like, we had so many actors come in and read for Bane and like try to do Banes, and we just couldn't like get it. We couldn't figure it out. And then James Adomian, who's a stand-up.
I know James. As a stand-up, I know James. James is hilarious.
James is a brilliant voice actor. And James came in and he wanted to do this take on the Hardy Bane, but he was like, anybody who talks like that would get like made fun of a lot while they were growing up, and they'd be like a little sensitive and soft, you know, of like their feelings could get hurt. And he was like, I want to do this take on Bane that's like this like thoughtful, his feelings get hurt a lot, and he's just like a little bit of an emo Bane. And honestly, James just like ran with it. Like most of the show is pretty scripted, but we allow people to then play within the like world of the script. And James is like a brilliant improviser, so he will add so many little things. Like do you remember the scene where it's at the end of an episode where Bane is cutting up Joshua's credit card because
yes, remember that?
Yeah, that's just like James going off for like a minute. Like,
you have to be responsible with these things.
Yeah. He takes out his little glasses and he's like, yeah.
I mean, and that's the cool balance about it, is the fact that like you are still seeing them at their nature. So if you notice, like Bane only hits the juice like when he's like genuinely pissed off.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's roided out, sees red Bane, but otherwise he's just fully like, this is who he is, which if anything is and I guess that's exactly what he was going for. What you guys are going for is it's humanizing the hell out of these people.
Bane drives a Volvo. Listen, I will never get past this. I will never get past. I will never get the fact when he was like, I think I need to move my Volvo. I was like, what? Also, when you bring up James Adomian, you guys have had some amazing celebrities on there. One of my favorite ones was Wanda Sykes as the Queen of Fables. Man. How did that one come about?
So that was great because we knew we wanted to have somebody on the show that was like, we knew we wanted to get to a point in the series where we talked about like, what does it mean to be evil and what's like real bad versus like being a bad person, right? Yeah. So we wanted to have a character that was like so fucking far, like so vile and evil. And we were trying to think of like, we were just trying to think of like guest actors that we felt could like really, really do it. And somebody pitched Wanda in the writer's room, and I'm just a huge fan of hers. Like, I think she's just so funny, and I think she's just like really underrated. Like, I think, like all of us who, like live in this business, we all know that Wanda's great. So we were just like, we pitched her. We were like, look, this is the character, would you be interested in doing it? And here's kind of where we're taking it. And Wanda was like 100%. Like, she was like, let me get in there and do it. And I think also like we have had a bunch of stand-ups on the show. Like, there's so many stand-ups with voices on the show. And Wanda knows all those stand-ups because she's been doing stand-up forever. So I think she looked at the cast list and was like, I know a lot of these motherfuckers. Like, I'll do the show. And so she did it. And then when we talked to her about it, we kind of were like, hey, in what we want to take this in this direction. We want Queen of Fables to be this like really evil, bad motherfucker. And she started to bring her own stuff to it. And I think that's part of our pitch to these actors is like, we're not like, hey, here are the lines. This is the character. Say this shit exactly how it is. We're like, here's what we're thinking. These are kind of the areas that we want to go. Like, what do you want to bring to it? Or if they're just like, hey, I want to say the lines, then great, we'll do that too. But with somebody like Wanda, who's just so like brilliant, we can kind of bring it to her and be like, hey, here's kind of what we're doing. And then she'll add whatever she wants to add to it. And that's our pitch to them is like, you can have fun with this. You can do this, no makeup on. You walk into a booth and you fuck around for 2 hours and then you leave,
I want to also talk about another big thing that I think it was on our review. And I saw you've done a little bit of talking about it. The shooting at the trolls. I've gotta ask, what made you decide to just say we're gonna have two dudes who are the epitome of what most internet trolls are? One with the Release the Snyder Cut shirt, and the other with the Last Jedi is not canon shirt. I understand seeing the internet in itself can make you say, oh yeah, we need to talk about these motherfuckers. I can see that. But what was the thought process behind it?
All right, so here's the like legit real story behind this.
Okay.
So we made this whole show before it was released. So like we even made the second season before the first season was released. We were working because it was a 2-season order. So we were just like, this show is way different than anything else DC has done. We were convinced that it was going to come out and some people were going to like it, but a lot of people were going to hate it. Like we just thought like it was going to piss a lot of people off because you're fucking with Batman. You're fucking with all these people that people grew up on. Right. And we were trying to we were really making this effort to make it an homage, but make it its own thing. But this just hadn't been this just hadn't been the DC thing. So we were convinced a bunch of people were going to talk shit about it. So we were like, oh, what would be funny is some episode in the second season, this will be kind of like our fuck you to everybody who we're sure is talking a ton of shit about it.
I mean,
and so we preemptively did this thing, right? But then the show came out and people really liked it, and nobody was really talking any shit about it. And so we're like halfway through production of this thing, and then we start to get real cold feet. Like we're like, fuck, like this had a really good reception, and now we're gonna fucking shit on all these people who didn't even say anything bad about the show. So and then we were like, well, at the end we said, they're wearing the Last Jedi is not canon and the Release the Snyder Cut thing. And we were sure that DC was going to be like, no, you can't do that. Through every stage of the process, it made it through the script process. But I was like, well, once they see the animatic for it, which is the early version of animation, then they'll say no. And we were kind of just doing it as a joke to each other, to me and Patrick. Patrick wrote that whole scene by himself, and he was like, it was just a joke between us. And then it just kept going. It kept nobody was saying no. And then we were like, okay. And then we got the animation back from Korea, and we had actually forgotten that they were wearing those shirts. And so then when we got it back, we're like, fuck, maybe we should nobody's talking any shit about the show. We should take this shit off of their shirts. And Warner Brothers was like, this is too late. Like shit's shipped. It's been drawn. Like we're not taking it off. Like, what do you do? And so we're like freaking out at this point. This is like a few weeks before it's going to air. And then we get a message, like, because we send it out, it gets sent out, the next episode gets sent out to critics like the week before. And
yeah, because that's how I get them. Like, I'm about to start watching 8 right now.
Right. Okay. So then the first Pat gets a direct message on his Twitter that's like basically saying like, hey, this is really fucked up. And from somebody who saw it early, and we're like, oh no, like this person's probably right, like this is fucked up, like it's gonna fucking piss people off, like it's gonna go crazy. So we're like scrambling, we're like on the phone with Warner Brothers being like, can you pixelate the shirts, can you do whatever, should we just like lop off the endings, right? And then finally I said to Pat, I was like, because he's the super comic book guy, I was like, look dude, people can either like take a joke or they can't take a joke. And if they can't take a joke, fuck them. Like, what do you want to do? Like, people make fun of fucking bald Jewy writers all the time. I can take the joke, you know? Like, so we were like, let's just leave it on. And, you know, and we left it on. And to the credit of like the release of Snyder Cut people, The Last Jedi people were less happy, but the Snyder Cut people were like, they like loved it. They just wanted to be like seen and heard, and they took it like really well.
Now that character is actually their idol, who they
worship. Or better yet, that character is now canon. Like he's now canon. Like, see, there's a guy who believes us. They put him in his dude. Because
go ahead, Jay.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, but it's funny because certain things, like we already loved the show, but I feel like the only reason that you then saw that ridiculous review of ours is because it was on that particular episode. And I also, I mean, I don't know if you had heard the story. That was the 3rd time we had done the review. So
I saw the thing. You're like, we recorded this 2 other times,
and it just didn't work out. And that's why I was like, I got a place to be, son. We're going to get through this shit right now.
And then the next, I don't know if you saw the one we did afterwards. So we record our live show, Blerds in the Hood, the same day we do the reviews. And so he was already exhausted when he came over to my house to record the review. So I was like, let me give you a coffee. And I have an espresso machine. He was like, man, this coffee ain't going to work. I'm like, trust me, this is going to work. If you watch the review, you can see the coffee kick in. You can see where it hits the point where his body is like, let's do this shit right now.
There was the point where it was like, did you give me cocaine? Like, what the fuck is this? I don't understand why they're like, come on, man, we just gotta get to this review. Like,
I tried to take the cup from him. I was like, let me go get it. He was like, don't you take my cup. I'm like, oh, okay. But no, like I think it's like it's really great what you all have done. And one of the other things I want to say before we get ready to let you go, you all have had on top of Wanda Sykes some amazing celebrity cameos. Sanaa Lathan as Catwoman, Alfred Molina as Mr. Freeze, Giancarlo Esposito as Lex Luthor did it for me.
And Lucius Fox.
And as Lucius Fox. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, yo, and it's also Tisha Campbell Martin is Tawny. I don't think it could have been anybody else.
Like, that is my best. That's, to me, that's one of the favorite little, because the whole show gives little digs at all sorts of random stuff. That little kind of dig at Wendy Williams.
Yep.
Kills me.
That is all Tisha, because again, that was a thing where like one of the guy we co-created with, Dean Laurie, Dean had worked a long time ago on a show called My Wife and Kids with Damon Wayans,
with Tisha as well,
with Tisha as well. And so he was just like, Tisha, do you want to do this? And then Tisha was like, I don't know if she explicitly said this, but it's so obvious she's doing Wendy Williams, you know, like that's.
It's besides obviously doing with Williams.
Yeah.
The only thing that would make it better is that the next time we see Tawny, if you end up, I don't know if you've been peeping Wendy now, either through John Oliver on Last Week Tonight or just watching her show. It's her in her office hollering for her cats who never respond to her, and her being like, hey y'all, don't worry about that. That's my fire alarm. You know, it needs new batteries, but we're not worried about that. And it's like, It's doing that so you can save yourself, woman. Like, what
Which,
are you
which, by the
doing?
way, before we go any further, we need to acknowledge the fact that Winston is regularly watching Wendy Williams. Okay,
I'm not.
we needed to say you have made sure to put that in your mental Rolodex about what Wendy.
No,
I
no,
don't
no, no, no,
don't
no,
you
no.
use
That's
don't you
John
give me the
Oliver.
John Oliver
No,
don't you
no,
give me
real,
the John
real
Oliver
talk,
excuse.
real talk, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all don't watch last week tonight. He does a whole segment on this nasty shit she eats, like caviar and like poached eggs, and like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and like
Can we
what
stop?
tuna? Like,
That's disgusting. Can we
she
not
just
discuss
doesn't
this?
care.
Why
She
would you
doesn't
want to
care,
keep
bro.
stop? Don't bring up no more. But listen, we know we got to let you go because you got to get back to the dog who was barking and the kids eventually who are gonna be like, "Where's my daddy?" Man, we want to thank you, Justin, seriously, for taking time out to come talk with us here on the show. And man, we definitely love everything you all are doing on the show, everything that you all have done. It is amazing. We want you guys to keep going. And we also had an idea. We wanted to pitch if it's cool.
Oh
Hey,
yeah,
man,
let's hear it.
real simple. Just
Real
like
simple.
you had at the start of the Freeze episode when they were talking about the gun. If you had two random goons that get murdered that just want to talk shit for a second, we can come in and talk.
We can talk shit as
Or we
random
can
dudes.
die.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
You
I
see,
absolutely like that idea.
be like, yo,
Hell yeah.
you see this bullshit? This ain't even insulated as good. You know what I'm saying? My nipples are cold. What the hell is wrong with them?
Hey man, don't you know that you ain't never supposed to have no black goons out in the Arctic? Like
we
I done told
guaranteed
you
to go
like
die.
two
You know what I'm
times.
saying? Where's the HR for goons? Like, who do we talk to? Where's the affirmative action for the goons? Like, we feel we could do that.
I feel like you should do that too. I like that idea.
But before we let you go, Justin, please tell the people if they want to talk to you, tell you congratulations, give you praise, or even their thoughts on the work, how they can find you.
I first off, I just appreciate you guys having us on, and it really like I loved your guys' review, and I feel like, you know, when you make stuff to see people who like it inspires to do their own funny stuff, I think is kind of like the best reception you could possibly get. So from, you know, we really appreciated it. Yeah, and if people want to, you know, the show is airing on Sci-Fi now. The first season is.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a Sci-Fi Sunday nights. I think it's and then season 2 is airing on DC Universe, and you can do a 7-day free trial. If you're like, maybe I don't want to shell out $7.99 a month before checking out what's on that service. You can see it there. You can find me at Justin_Halpern. And honestly, like, I am somebody who I really like to hear from people who've watched the show, man. I'm not one of those people who like make something and then I'm like, I don't read reviews. I don't look at anything. Like I make it because I want to like have this discourse with people and see what they think. Even if sometimes people are like write to me and they're like, you know, they don't like something about it, or I like to hear it. So, you know, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. And I really appreciate you guys talking about the show.
Of course, man. We'll rep it to death. And I've told people that, you know, this show, in my opinion, was the best show, like top 3, if not number 1 on TV last year.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That really means a lot.
Because what it did was it took your normal characters, and we're used to seeing animation already, but to not even just the rated R twist, it's the real life element behind it.
That I'm glad you said that, because that was really like the pitch for the show. That was like, let's see what these people's real lives are like and what the, like, you know, emotions of a day to day in one of these people's lives sound like, you know, and feel like. And so I think, you know, the fact that you guys are responding to it and people seem to really be responding to it is really gratifying for us, because I know it was a hard sell to Warner's at first, because it made them really nervous. Like, Harley's a big, huge property for them. And I remember, like, we had, if I'm going too long, stop me. But
No.
we had this meeting when we were first kind of like coming up with the show. And we were like, you know, breaking the stories and breaking the world. They had us meet with Margot Robbie because Margot was doing Birds of Prey. You know, it was like in the very, like, it was in its infancy. Like,
okay,
you know, and Margot wanted to meet with us only because she wanted to know what we were doing, because she was doing something there too. And just to, like, you know, I remember where I'm sitting in this meeting and Margot's there, and Jeff Johns, who at the time was the head of DC, was there, and the head of Warner Brothers is there. And we're all like sitting there in this meeting, and Margot's like, pitch me what you're doing. And first of all, she's like in like a $5,000 Versace suit. She'd just come from doing press for I, Tanya. So she looks like not even a human being. And I look like this. And it felt like, like Game of Thrones and somebody like some like peasant approaches the like queen. And so I was like, look, this is what we're doing. It's about her like breaking up and having her own, world and figuring out like who she is and what she wants to do. And Margot turns to Jeff Johns and she's like, that's what we're doing. And it like, is it the same, And Jeff was like, look, he had read the first script that we had written and he was like, trust me, it is like not, it's like way different, but everybody was super nervous. And because that, we're a little tiny cartoon. That's a big fucking movie.
Yeah.
And they didn't want us to fuck up something for them. But to their credit, like DC just was like, you know what, do your thing, like do it and make it funny and go balls out and we'll support you guys. And they really did, like, and Harley is a big piece of business for them. It's like one of their biggest characters. So the fact that they let this show even happen is kind of mind blowing to me. We would always turn in these scripts and be like, there's no fucking way they're going to let us do this. Like, they're not going to let us, tell a finger banging joke at the end of an episode. They're not, they're not going to let us to do this. They're not going to let us make Bane like this. They're not going to let us like do any of this stuff. And again, to their credit, they were like, you're your own universe. Like, go do it. So I
got one last thing I have to ask, and I'd be remiss if we do not ask this question. Harley and Ivy's relationship.
Bro, we're about to watch the next episode. Why don't you just wait?
Okay, I'll step away from the microphone then. Since you
go ahead. Just get out. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I asked already. I just was. You know what? Never mind. We just gonna let it be with Kite Man. Hell yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get this. We get that question a lot. I think one of the benefits to having done this show in its entirety before even the first season came out is I don't think we fully understood how quickly people wanted Harley and Ivy to get together. Like, people wanted that shit to happen like right away.
Yeah.
And for us, like, that was always kind of the end game. Like, that's where we wanted to go. But like, I don't know how you tell a breakup story where somebody's trying to discover their identity and what they actually want if you just get them back into a relationship right away. Like, they just got out of one toxic relationship. You're just going to have them jump into the relationship that works right after. Like, when does that ever happen? It never happens. So for us, we were like, season 1, we're not going to have her date anybody. Like Harley, we're not going to have Harley date anybody. And we're going to have her figure out who she is. And then with Ivy in season 1, we were like, look, like, our version of Ivy has like a lot of social anxiety. She hasn't even had any relationships, platonic or otherwise, with human beings at all. And Harley's going to start to open her up just to like being around people for the first season, right? But what happens when you have a lot of social anxiety and you're like kind of a little bit self-loathing and you have some self-esteem issues, like, you don't always date the right person for you. You date the person who's maybe nicest to you right away. And so that was our take. It's like, first season, Ivy's going to get in a relationship with Kite Man because he's going to fucking adore her, And so I think we wanted this to be like a really slow burn. Our take from the start, we had this like mantra, which is like, life is messy, relationships are messy, the show is going to be messy. Like, we're not going to have a clear, like, A to B to C. Even now, in the most recent episode, I won't spoil it, but in the most recent episode, some stuff happens. And I got all these messages already on Twitter being like, you did it for us. Thank you. And it's like, dude, this is a show about, and shows need conflict and things are messy. Like, there's going to be some downs coming too. Like, you're going to be yelling at me in 2 episodes,
I'm so sad for Kite Man and nothing has even happened yet. That's my boy. Like, probably my 2 favorite characters are King Shark and Kite Man, and he's about to just be crushed.
I want Kite Man to pitch this threesome. Like, hey, lady, Kite Man has to pitch the threesome. Like, listen,
I don't know if you're a big Friends dude, but I feel like this is the what if episode of Friends where Ross gets in the threesome with his ex-wife.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, there was a lot of watching. I was just kind of in the back, just like.
It was just me and my kite. Like me and my kite.
Kite Man would get into a threesome where Kite Man actually didn't do anything the entire threesome.
Yep.
100%.
We got ideas. But seriously, Justin, thank you so much for this, man. We appreciate you so much. And we about to go